We are back for episode 2. Last episode we covered 2020. We're back. We've got our, what do I call these? What is, ready? Hold on. Yeah.
I already opened mine because I was thirsty. So
You're just listening. We have a Coke Zero each, and I like to refer to them as a millennial cigarette because I do not smoke cigarettes, but I grew up with people that smoke cigarettes, and so, you know, when life is stressful, just need a bit of a break.
get yourself
Good old Coke Zero sugar.
That's not how the slogan goes, but we're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored.
You know, if you want us, if you know, Coke wants to jump on and sponsor us because we've got red couches and red cans, like.
I mean, I think, not that you,
happy to.
I don't know what you would presume looking at my body, but, like, I feel like I eat reasonably healthy. And I mostly do, like, my drink of choice is an almond latte, an oat latte. But yeah, just every now and again. By every now and again, maybe 2 or 3 times a week.
My drink of choice is a ice long black. Which is.
Now, we mentioned it, briefly in the last podcast, but your husband's drink of choice recently has been...
Okay, so his drink of choice, I don't know if you caught that in the last one, if not, go back to that, is a brunana, which is a banana smoothie or thick shake, is it?
I don't know.
It's like, I think it's like a banana...
It's like, some sort of banana smoothie with shots of coffee in it.
Yeah, and he gets an extra shot, so it's like got 3 shots of coffee in it.
In a banana smoothie.
Yeah, with a banana. Yeah.
We actually know the barista of the coffee shop, so we could ask her. Like, I would like to know how popular that drink is because I love that coffee shop. I have tried almost everything on the menu. Yeah. Love it all. I don't even want to try the brunana.
If they want us to come and podcast
out of Giovanni's, look, that's possible.
In their coffee shop.
I should send this to the owner and
What's her name again, Jessie?
I do know her name, but I'm not going to name drop people without their permission. What if we go viral? Okay. So anyways, we will send this to her. Ask her permission to use her name. So we'd the last episode, we ended it with, so January of 2020, myself and Josh and our 3 children had travelled to Broken Hill, January of 2021, after all that was 2020, which if you haven't listened to the previous podcast, go back and have a listen. But basically, I was having some sort of like internal crisis because I'd studied for one thing, like I'd studied to be a pastor and I was working as a chaplain. I felt like the grace had left in the ministry that we were doing. And amongst all of that, Kirsty's dad died. Kirsty was clinically dead for 20 minutes. Then she was in a coma. Like, it's a good podcast. Go back and listen. Lots happened.
I cried a few times too. So
she cried a few times. I'm yet to cry. So maybe we need like a cry count. I don't really cry about my own trauma. I cry about like the beauty of Jesus, if you really get into that. Like the glory of God makes me cry. That just sounds really stuck up. Sorry, I'm not trying to. That's a whole other story that I would love to tell at some point. I think this is going to branch off into 2 things because this is small churches, big God. We want to tell the stories of small churches and talk about leadership and ministry in a small church context. And we've decided to start by telling the stories of like how myself and Kirsty both ended up in Outback Australia, serving in a small church here. I serve as the senior pastor, and Kirsty has come on board with a lot of our worship and stuff. Her husband moved here, and while he was looking for work out here, he rebuilt our whole stage. So we're all kind of in it for the long haul, serving the Lord in the Outback.
I feel like we should. I just said this to Jessie just before when we So we walked away. Yep. So we came back, and I feel like we should like do church tours. So let us know like if you want
church tours.
I don't really. And we can like just kind of be like, hey, this is a stage that Richard built. We
could,
and be like
on our Instagram or something.
Yeah. And these are the Christmas trees that we followed a dopamine trail to build.
Yeah.
Like all that kind of stuff. Like I'd actually think that's
could be
cool
fun
too. But let me know if you want to see that because I would gladly be sitting on reels and be like, hey, that's cool. I recognize that place.
Yeah, some like before and afters because we did that's probably another episode. Maybe the next episode we could talk about like what's happened since you moved here.
Yeah.
Because we've had some really cool stuff happen. But yeah, so that's kind of the context for this podcast. We kind of think we might break off into 2 podcasts, because I think me and Kirsty have a lot of shared history and a lot of thoughts about theology and pop culture and everything in between. So we may also make a podcast that's more me and Kirsty just chewing the fat, or myself and Kirsty. I always get pulled up for saying that. I don't understand why I can't just say me and so and so.
I was going to be like, why are you saying chewing the fat? But anyway.
Chewing the fat, that's like a thing. So anyway, if you like this kind of style, there's more coming, and so it'll probably branch off into 2 things where I go and interview people and really talk about how we lead and run small churches, and by small churches we mean kind of under 500 people, and then there may also be another one coming of me and Kirsty. So if you've got any thoughts on what we could call that, yeah. So we finished the podcast January 2020. Myself, my husband, and my 3 children. Our 3 children. I keep saying my 3 children, but we share them. They're all Josh's.
Not me and you.
Not you and me.
We don't share the 3 children. But we, yeah.
I could get cancelled, but that's not actually biologically possible.
Science is evolving, but that's another.
Not there yet. Okay. Now I've lost track. So myself, my husband, and my husband shared 3 children. And that's a cool story as well. We could tell us anyway. So we came up to Broken Hill in January for the Australia Day long weekend. And by the end of that weekend, we had said to Pastor Wall, who was the senior pastor here at the time, that yes, we would move to Broken Hill. And I mentioned in the previous podcast, I had a trainee minister's credential through our denomination. And he had basically said, we'll come up and basically they like for you to hold what's called a state minister's credential, which is essentially fully qualified, I guess, before you take on a church. So the plan was to hand over the church over an 18-month period, which, like all good church handovers, actually ended up taking 2.5 years. And as part of that, he would do the next lot of credentialing with me and get me up to my state minister's credential. So we had agreed to that plan. As a family, the children came up and visited Broken Hill and they really liked it. When we moved here, my kids were 4, 6 and 8. So they're now nearly 9, 10 and 13.
9, 11, 13?
No, 9, 10, 13. Because there's 18 months between the boys. So the second half of the year, it's really easy. It's
yeah.
8, at the moment they're 8, 10 and 12, but then very shortly they'll be 9, 10 and 13 for 6 months. Anyway, so they were quite young, but coming up to school age and whatnot.
Sorry, I have PTSD from the last time my phone vibrated and you.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we made the decision to move up to Broken Hill, and I guess for us the rest is history. We then went back home for the first term of school for the children, back to the Adelaide Hills, continued living there, and moved up in April of 2021. And that was really cool. We moved up with, obviously, our family, but your family, so Kirsty and her husband and daughter, and my husband's parents, my in-laws, came up, and his sister and her family came up as well.
So we didn't, come up as, forever at that point.
No, you helped us move up.
So we all just kind of created our own little moving army and just
it was quite hilarious
in our cars. And
if we're talking about movies, that was less drama and more Lampoon's Family Vacation kind of vibes.
But in our church tours that we're going to make in Reels, you'll see the fern that I carried on my lap.
Fern.
Yeah, that I carried on my lap.
If she wasn't so
600
hefty, I would
drive.
have brought her in for the podcast, but we've got this new little...
Yeah, this is a peace lily though, so that's...
Peace lilies are nice.
Is it a peace lily?
It is a peace lily.
Oh, see, I'm learning my plants. It's what Broken Hill's done to me.
So...
plant wisdom.
Yeah, so we moved up in the April, and I guess since then, I think, just to kind of, catch people up to then get to when you moved to Broken Hill, which is 4 years later. So we were then out here. You guys probably visited once every 6 months or so, we reckon?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
In that time, which was really lovely, more than anybody else. Sorry, all my other friends. Kirsty wins. And my parents moved up here. So I remember, a couple of months into being here, some people had come to visit the church, some local people in town, and to kind of support us. And they'd invited us to their house for lunch. And we went and we had this wonderful lunch. It was super cruisy, and it reminded me a lot of like the Sunday lunches we used to have with my husband's family. And I came home and I just started like crying, like just weeping. And I think it was interesting because like we had spent so much time making the decision to move here. And just for clarity as well, I don't think we've really said this. So if you don't have any context for the geography of where we are, we moved from the Adelaide Hills to Broken Hill, which is about 650 kilometres. So it's about a 6-hour drive, or a very, very expensive, very little aeroplane flight.
And not as frequent.
Yep. And our town is about 6 hours from Adelaide, about 9 from Melbourne and 12 from Sydney. The next closest town of any significance is 3 hours away. So we are quite isolated. And so we'd moved out here, made this big decision, but it was a lot. It was a lot to kind of process. We'd left everything behind. Both myself and my husband had lived in and around the Adelaide Hills our entire lives. And I probably didn't let you know, or anybody really, how much I guess it was a kind of grief. Like I was really not in a good way.
Yeah.
And so we went to this lunch and it was lovely, like just so lovely. And I came back and we were like living on site here in the manse, which was not the best either.
You did actually let me know, and then that's why like I used my my rehab time, and I like would post you gifts.
Yeah.
So
you probably you knew. I was trying to hide it, but you probably did know. And so we had moved up here. Part of the deal was that we were living for free in the old church manse. But like when my husband proposed this idea to me, I looked around it and I was like, 6 months. Like I could live in this place for 6 months and that's it. Like there was historic termite damage. So like at one point, one of the door frames just like completely fell off. The kitchen,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The kitchen, the only thing that made the kitchen a kitchen was that it had a sink in it. Like there was no kitchen benches. We had to like bring in our own like
also,
island thing.
Like when you'd walk into the kitchen,
it like bounced.
It's like the floor isn't meant to move, or like just be complete split level. Like it just like it was.
But the Lord is so good. Like that enabled us to really like, to get our finances in check, and we now live in a really lovely house. So, but that was dodgy. So there was a lot going on. And so we came back, I remember we were standing in the kitchen of the manse and I just started like crying. and that wasn't Jesus, that was just genuine emotion. Not that it's not genuine emotion when Jesus makes me cry, but that's, now I'm getting sidetracked. But I wasn't crying because of the glory of God in that particular situation. I was crying because I was wallowing in my own self. And my husband, he just like picked up a phone and he made me talk to my mum, which I didn't want to do because my mum is such a feeler. And I knew that if I had told mum how I was really feeling, that like that would really affect her and she'd be really sad too. And I didn't want to do that to her. So I was like, oh no, it's fine. I'm fine, mum, I'm fine. And mum just said to me, oh, would it help to know that we're moving to Broken Hill in like 3 weeks' time? And so unbeknownst to me, this man had organised for my parents to come and live here. They were travelling around in a big motorhome. So they were originally going to come for 2 months. They ended up staying for 2 years. 4 years, I think. That's a whole other story. But so my parents came out, which was really good. That was helpful. And then we also made some really good friends in town. But then at the end of 2023, one of the two, they moved back to where they had come from. And so it just felt like once again we were back to square zero and just didn't like, I'm quite extroverted. I love having people to do life with. I love like having a home with a really open door policy and people coming over and all of those kind of things. And I felt like we'd built that and then those people left. And then it was like, oh, now we've got to start from the beginning again. And the church really grew when we first came to town because we were like the new shiny pastor, like people were excited and kind of came on board, but then that kind of died down and 2021, New South Wales had a 3-month-long lockdown. I think that's when you started sending me gifts.
Like when we visited every 6 months, you were like, trust me. There's like so many people that come to our church, and then we'd come and there'd be like 12 people. And we were like, yeah, cool.
Because, well, the other thing, which is like really important for our context, and is a real small church thing, and that's why I love what your previous church does with like having communion and a big long table.
Yeah.
So you would come to visit on long weekends.
Yeah.
And long weekends, Broken Hill, being 6 hours from the closest like capital city, long weekends is when everyone leaves town.
Yeah.
So you would come to visit and like half the congregation, so it still isn't like massive, but like half the congregation would be away. And I'd be like, no, I promise there's more people in my church.
Trust me, there's more people. And we were just kind of like, yeah.
What is Jessie doing? Because it's like, you know, and so there was heartbreak, I guess, in that time as well for me, because we'd given up everything, and there was Sundays where I'm preaching to a dozen people, most of which are over 60. And if you know me at all, like I love teenagers, I love young adults, like I thrive in that environment. We've had some different young adults come through the church, and I'm like, yes, come over, play board games. How nerdy are you with the board games? Because that's really like, sorry, but you're not the best at that.
I'm sorry, I can't.
You just don't love it.
I'm like, give me a card game any day because it's quick and it's done. Like, that's all my.
For those playing at home, I like got really hyper focused wanting to play a game called Wingspan a lot, and have struggled to find people to play with me.
Yeah, so then she learnt this game and then was like, you need to learn it. And then I played it once and I was like, I'm never doing that again.
It's fun. I like it.
I'm not a board game girly.
It makes Monopoly look simple.
Give me some colouring books, and I'm like, I'm like a toddler. You know, like just give me something.
So to just kind of give, I guess,
a corner with an iPad,
the overview of the last 5 years, it's been like high highs and low lows. I feel like it deserves its whole podcast episode, but in 2024, beginning of 2024, I travelled overseas and had probably the biggest encounter with the Lord that I've ever had, and was freed from a lot of fear. So all of that was happening as well. So just a lot has happened in the last few years for me personally, for us as a family, for the church. And so I guess to kind of then link in you coming to Broken Hill, myself and my husband had set up the church for a funeral. So we're actually in the church at the moment.
We'll do a tour. Don't you worry.
Yeah, Kirsty's pretty keen on this tour idea. But
we're going to make reels about it, and you guys will be like, oh, wow, I get what they're talking about.
Yeah. So the other interesting thing about our church building is it was built in the early 90s by some people with really a lot of faith and a lot of finances. And so it's a blessing. It really, really is. And I tell myself that every day. I also tell myself that it's prime for revival. But there's a challenge when you probably have like 30 committed adults, you know, in your church, tithing, that kind of thing. But your building's built for 350 people. So like there's a lot of upkeep to that. So yeah, maybe the church tour is a really good idea, but we'd set up chairs for about 170 people, which is like this weird goal that I have in my mind. There's 17,000 people in Broken Hill. So I'm like, if we had 170 people in the church, that's 1% of the town. So that's kind of like my goal, I guess, for us as a church. Like I don't want a mega church, but I feel like it'd be really cool that at any given point down the shops, somebody from our church is there, because 1 in 100 people go to our church.
Yeah.
Like us, anyway. So we'd set up the church, interestingly, for 170, and I looked at my husband, and I was quite emotional, so maybe I do get emotional other times, and I just said to him, I just feel like if we had one other like really solid family that was partnering with us in ministry, it would make all the difference, because at that point we really felt like we've got some amazing committed people. We have people in our church that have been serving for 50 years.
Yeah.
Like I'm 34, like their serving predates my life by 15 years. Like, and I'm not meaning in like in a small capacity, like on boards, just like year in, year out, lovingly serving. Like one of the ladies on our board who's like in the next room having a meeting about finances with Josh at the moment. We've got one of the ladies that regularly leads worship has been doing it for longer than I've been alive. And I think that is so beautiful and so wonderful. The problem is when young people and young families come, they just kind of, they don't see that, I think, in the same way that I do. And they're just like, oh, we want to be where the other families are or whatever. So we set up the church for this funeral, and I looked at Josh, tears in my eyes, and I said to him, I just feel like if we had one other family that was like 100% committed, because we have a few families in the church, and I think it's just the way that the world is going. It's just like a part of modern ministry is that people have other commitments. And so they're not like, you just don't ever know whether you're going to see them or not, almost.
Yeah.
And that's not like to throw flack. It's just, you know, they have other things going on in their lives and church isn't their number one priority. I'm like sold out for the church, and for seeing the church be all it can be in a community, like church as in church, as in like the broader, like the big C church, not just like my little congregation, but the church. Anyways, church is set up for 170 people. I look at Josh, I'm like, if we just had one other family that was like fully committed and wanted to just really partner with us and serve, I feel like that would make all the difference.
Yeah.
Because at that point the numbers were super low and I'm just like, Lord, like, what are we doing here? Like, I love you, I love the church, but this, like, what is happening? And so the next day I get a FaceTime.
Which is crazy because, like, if you're saying that happened on the Sunday, did you have that conversation on the Sunday?
No, it would have been like the Tuesday or the Wednesday.
Okay.
So you'd already made a decision at that point.
We'd made the decision the Sunday prior.
Yeah.
And kind of...
And this woman had been talking about moving to Broken Hill with her husband for what, like 6-8 months or something?
It's like, there's been like, we'd been talking maybe about a year prior. And like, every time we come up, we kind of like then toss up the idea and be like, oh, we could live here. Like, we could do this, blah, blah, blah. You know how, like, if you go on holidays and then you just kind of go and you just start, like, just spitballing ideas.
Yeah.
And that's literally every single time. Every 6 months we'd come up and we'd be like...
Which I didn't realise because... When we'd first moved up, Tom, who we briefly referenced in the previous podcast, he moved to Broken Hill as well.
Yeah.
About 2 months after we did. He came up for a long weekend with you guys, got full-time work up here.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of jobs up here. So if you're listening and you're from some other part of Australia...
Or you become redundant and, you know, make a podcast.
Housing is cheap, like super cheap. There is lots of jobs and, move to Broken Hill. Be a part of what God's doing out here.
I know a pretty cool church with, like... you know, a cool pastor and like a pretty cool worship leader that, you know.
It'll be fun. So, but what had happened is Tom had moved up. You guys had come to visit. We, for about, I don't know, maybe the first 6 months, we would like send links for jobs that Richard could do in Broken Hill. And like, we looked at, like, I basically spent the first probably year I was here trying to convince you to move up with me.
Yeah.
And then I feel like at some point Richard got a bit annoyed and he was like, we're not moving to Broken Hill.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I just completely shut the idea down in my head.
Yeah.
And I was like, so grateful that you would come and visit regularly. And I was like, because as we talked about, like, we would dinner 3 or 4 nights a week. We were like doing life together. So it was quite like.
It was like, it kind of like, there were so many times where like, even when I was going through, and if you hear about the last podcast, we were talking about me doing rehab for 9 months and all that kind of stuff.
For a brain injury.
For a brain injury, not drugs or anything.
But like that would be an incredible testimony too. Just but just to clarify.
I was in brain rehab. Shout out to, I think her name was Kate. She was pretty cool. But anyway, like being through that, I've forgotten my train of thought now. But yeah, like, you know, we'd be like, our community's just like up and left. We like,
it was really hard.
We weren't fully like solid within a church at that point either. When like when these
we're
guys
trying to be chronological. So all that happened. I said to Josh, I just feel like if we had one other solid family, what in those 4 years that I just kind of covered very briefly, do you want to kind of cover what happened for you guys in those 4 years and everything that happened with, like, I think we can say Sunday?
Yeah, sure. All right. So we were like, these guys had left. These guys just kind of up and left by like, what was it, like April or something of 2021?
Yeah. So it was like we visited Broken Hill in November and by April we were living here.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Now, but I say it's crazy, but we moved here within the same, like, the same time frame of going, we're doing it, and then grabbing all that stuff. And
I think once you make the decision, you're just keen to be in a place.
You just kind of have to do it. So then, like, 6 months later, we were kind of, I was church hopping, and Richard was like, I'm not.
Because I feel like once we left,
Jessie and Josh aren't there, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I feel like once we left the church that if you had a church home, it would have been the church that we were at.
Yeah.
Even though, like, we can't talk last podcast about how you weren't, like, super involved, but you, like, that was your church if you had, And so you had said to me on the phone, and I had encouraged you, and you would, like, you did talk to the previous senior pastor and say, like, hey, we're going to look for another church. We just don't feel like this is our...
Yeah.
And you had some connection with that church, like, since you were a kid.
Yeah.
And just felt like it was time for something new.
That was a church that, like, when I was 12, my sister, one of my older sisters, she started going to that church, and then I just kind of like was 12 and I just kind of like matured within this church. But then I also like was kind of like in a bunch of different like Christian communities throughout the area where we were living too. But this one kind of was like, oh, well, you know, I went to kids' church growing up with them.
It's like your childhood church.
It was like, you know, that's what I kind of did. Like a Friday night, we'd go on this little dodgy bus and we'd all go, you know, to the kids' church. And then we'd kind of like, you know, and that was really awesome because we'd pay $5 and get a Happy Meal and everyone had movies and played games and like it was actually a real cool thing. And then so like we did that and then like then I was like, you know, when I was like 12 or 13, I started going to the church that my sister was, you know, heavily involved in. And she subsequently got saved within that church and, you know, ended up serving. And then I just kind of followed suit because between my age and her age, it's 15 years difference.
Yeah, so this said sister is like...
She was like my second mum, but being my sister. So she was like, you know...
Yeah, I always feel the same way about her because we just like, especially as late teens, young adults, spent a lot of time with her.
Yeah. So like we...
Shout out to Lisa.
Yeah.
Love ya.
Yeah, Lisa, if you're listening...
You better be because we need family and friends to like and share.
And I feel like if you want to make it on social media, so will we. I don't know if you will. I don't know. I don't know if we will.
Okay, so we're trying to go over that 4 years. So we've set the context. So you had called me and said, I don't feel part of, you know, it just wasn't the same without us there at that church.
Yeah.
And the high school that I had been working in as a chaplain, I'd gotten to know a really lovely couple who were planning a church in Mount Barker where you were living at the time.
Yeah.
And so I gave you her phone number.
Yeah. So shout out to Holly and Jake because they are, you know, pretty good anyway. But like Holly had randomly messaged me and said, hey, I got your number from Jessie, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm keen to come to a church, but... And I was so nervous, like I was so anxious.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, cool. We're having like sort of like, I don't know what they like launch nights.
Like expression of interest?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It's real like church plant.
So they actually like planted this, they were like, you know, having like these like, you know, lead-in sort of services before their launch. And kind of just to kind of then get a feel for the community because they were originally from... you know, the Murraylands sort of region.
Yeah.
So then they ended up come along. And so I was like, oh no, like, you know, all my anxiety came in and like and I've actually openly told her this story now, but I like the first night, I was like, yeah, I'm so keen to come. And I actually left my house and I was like, I'll just go by myself. So I'd left my daughter at home, like, you know, with Richard. But I'd left her at home and then just kind of, like, I'll just go see what it's about to start off with, like, by myself. And so I went to drive to this area and I kind of was like, I was lost, but then I wasn't lost because I knew where I was going. And then I kind of like stayed at the top of the driveway at the main road. And I kind of went, yep, all right. It's down there. Right, good. And then I drove off. Like, just kind of. And then, so then Holly ended up messaging me going, hey, I missed you tonight, blah, blah, blah. We didn't get to see you. Hopefully next week.
Just so beautiful.
And I was like, yeah, sorry. And I think I said that I was sick or something. Like I completely just lied myself out of it. And I say that I can't lie. And I feel like as a convicted Christian, I really actually can't lie properly. And I do like the full like shifty eye thing. And I always have like a smirk on my face. I'm going to go, yeah.
It's because, like, this is just a small tangent, but I've like really realized this recently that like, I'm such a believer that we are a new creation. When you come to Christ, like the Bible says, you're a new creation, the old is gone, the new has come. And so we no longer actually have a sin nature, but we have fleshly habits and stuff that sometimes try and stick around.
Yeah.
But they actually conflict with the new nature that the Lord's put in us. Yeah. So whenever we sin, including lying, it like irks us inside because we're a new creation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry. So we like, and I was like, okay, yeah, maybe next time, which I think was like a fortnight later or something like that.
Yeah, I don't even think it was weekly at that point.
And then so I was like, yeah. So then the second time I was like, all right, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I had my little, what's it called? What do they say? Like, I don't know what I was going to try and say something really millennial, but it wasn't coming out.
Shoulder bag? No.
Yeah.
Crossbody? I think crossbody's millennial. And shoulders
my
what the
crossbody. What's it like? Oh, no, I can't remember. It's like, like the support person. I had my little support buddy with
emotional
me.
support.
Yeah. I have a little emotional support buddy, which was my daughter.
Right, okay.
And I was like, if something goes wrong, I have to be brave as a parent, so it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, like, because I had to kind of force myself to be, like, not
I just really want to say, if you're listening to this and you're perhaps, like, skirting around, like going to church.
Yeah.
Whether you feel like you're walking with Jesus or not, but maybe you feel drawn to going to church, like feeling nervous and like the experience that you're describing is so normal.
Yeah.
Like, and even as a pastor who's been in church for like 20 odd years at this point.
Yeah.
23 years or something. I still try and remind myself of that when we have people visit. Like, I try really hard to make it like a really lovely experience for them, because I'm aware that like it's such a big thing to like walk through those doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had my daughter with me, and so I was like, no, yeah, it's going to be fine. You will go. And she was like, and like she'd come to church with me on and off for, her entire life. And like, and I think maybe she had in her head like, oh yeah, it's just another church service Mum's taking me to, but it's not going to stick, so we'll be right.
Yeah.
Like I just remember once when she was a baby and I had gone to a church service, and it was like quite a big, like, like it was like almost like confronting sort of church service. It was just kind of like, ugh. And this lady was like trying to be, welcoming and comforting, but she was like, no, I'll take you, baby, that's fine. I just took her away. And I was like, ugh, this is like, and I just had like, I was a new, like,
there was a lot, like that's a whole other podcast episode of what your life looked like when Scarlett was a baby. Yeah. But it was not like. Yeah,
so like back then, and we'll touch on it maybe later at some point, but I was a young 21-year-old single mum for a little bit, and I was like, don't take my baby. Like, I literally, like she's
the whole world.
Yeah, like a 10-month-old baby, and I was like, don't take her away. Like, that's so silly. And then I went into the creche afterwards. I was like, how'd she go? And she was like, trying to, like, like she'd cried and screamed the entire time. And I was like, that's enough church for today.
Yeah.
That's enough Jesus. And it was like, maybe I needed, like, and I was like, dead set, I'm going to be here for my kid, and I even think back at that now, and I'm like, if I felt like that as a parent, imagine like how God feels about us, when we do things and we feel scared about things, and then God's like, it's okay, I got you, like, I'll go check on you,
It's
like,
so true.
Yeah.
Because like something that I've done a little bit of is different prayer ministry and whatnot, and part of that is sometimes people going back to some really traumatic things. And like just such a reoccurring theme is that Jesus is always there.
Yeah.
And his heart is breaking just as much as our own, if not more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like so crazy, but it's like so unfathomable to, be able to rely on a faith that's like, it's always there. You can always just kind of like be like, oh yeah, this thing scares the heck out of me, but it's all good because, God's got it.
Like I could literally die, and that's almost the best case scenario. Like I don't want to die. I'm quite happy on the earth for now, but...
Or you might get resuscitated and be fine again.
Yeah.
5 years later. and living in Broken Hill.
So you went to Sunday.
Yeah, so I went to this. So
this is what, like the first podcast took us an hour.
A fortnight later, we went to. I went back to the church. I actually went in this time, and I parked, and I was, walked in, and just kind of like, I was like, ended up like right before my cardiac arrest, all that kind of stuff. There was a girl that I'd worked with. Shout out to Tegan if she listens. Hopefully she listens too, because she's like.
Well, we can send it to all of them. Be like, you should listen to this podcast because we talk about you,
we
and then they'll be intrigued.
Too. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I know that girl. Like, and then this other person.
Which is so funny because she's the one that took over my job. So the chaplaincy job I was talking about, Tegan was the one that took over from me.
It's so bizarre.
So bizarre.
And then like I was like, oh, like this is going to be like a thing that I'm just not going to know anyone. It's going to be fine. I'm just going to like meet a whole new people.
And as stressful as that was, it was kind of part of the appeal because you were known to a lot of the Christian community in Broken Hill.
Yeah.
Not in Broken Hill, in the Adelaide Hills.
In the Adelaide Hills, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I walked in and I just remember Tegan coming out and being like, oh my gosh, Kirsty, you're here. You're alive. Like
you didn't die.
How are you going? Like this is like
because that was such a reoccurring theme
like
as well.
Nearly like what was it, about 10 months later after my like cardiac arrest.
So I feel like the rumor mill spins and all the rest, and people knew that you were alive, obviously.
Yeah.
But I
was
think a lot of people were just like, is she functional? Is she like permanently disabled? Like, what's the go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like she like ended up, being like, oh yeah, like I go here. I'm like planting this church with these people.
Yeah.
Which was actually so cool because I was like, oh, I know one person.
It's like you knew just the right amount of people.
Yeah, but then I walked in.
Had you met Jake and Holly before at all?
No.
That's so weird to me because I've met them so many times and just figured they were the kind of people that everybody knew. So they had gone to like the same Bible school as me, but not at the same time. But even before I was like working in the same town that they were running the youth group in, like I at least knew of them. But I suppose you weren't like super, because the denomination is quite like, you kind of know everybody as well.
Yeah.
So maybe it was through that. I don't know.
Yeah. But I think like there was a point where I was kind of like, doing like, I was invited to events from their church then, where like Jake was just like this naughty little 15-year-old kid that was like,
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, because he is younger than us.
Yeah. So like that's the kind of Jake
impression that you had.
And I didn't like actually meet him then either. So it was just kind of like, oh, he might not have been him, might have been some other naughty,
who knows?
naughty kid.
There was a few.
But anyway,
like back in the day, that youth group had to hire
actual
like security. Yeah. So it was pretty wild. But amazing ministers and that's a whole other story. That's not even our story, but it's incredible to see the fruit that's come out of that.
So then like I'd gone to that, and then they were like, yeah, cool. Should we see you next week? And so a part of their like, which I think is actually kind of cool, and I think we should adapt to it too. But like, they're like, back then, obviously you had to document because of COVID safe reasons and all that kind of stuff. Like
which was kind of useful for churches because we were able to like,
you get
people's details.
Yeah.
Which almost felt awkward before, but now it's like, oh, sorry, legally we need your name and number and your address and how many children you have and where your grandfather went to school.
Yeah. And like, whether you're on the spectrum or not. No, that doesn't actually matter. But if you were, you'd fit right in. Welcome home.
All right, so we're going to like...
So I was like, oh yeah, went to this church, and it was like super weird because it was called the Pav, and it was right next to
not the church, the like building.
Okay, so the building was called the Pav. I did quotations again, whoever was listening. Anyway, it was like not the Pavlova, the Pavilion, which I used to get confused with the two.
Yeah, that
for
makes
a little bit there.
Well, like any church plant.
Yeah.
Just they jumped around a bit.
Yeah.
From different locations, and so. All I kind of remember is that you were then going pretty regularly, but Richard was still like, nah.
Yeah.
And then there was this weird thing because, like, I know Richard and I know Jake, and I was like, I'd been trying, man. Like, we had taken him to alpha courses. I'd been like, Richard, you need Jesus. And he was just, like, skirting around the edge of Christianity is what I kind of call it. And, like, I feel like your love story is a whole other podcast episode, but, like, I have immense respect for Richard.
Yeah.
And so we were just like, yeah, Richard, you need Jesus. And then you were going to Sunday, and I knew Jake and I knew Richard, and we would, like, have phone conversations, and we'd be like, they just need to meet. And I knew in my heart that if anybody was going to, like, lead Richard to the Lord, it would be Jake.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know Jake, he's just cool.
Yeah.
Like, he's just one of those people that's just naturally a really cool dude. And I knew that, like, Richard would be really drawn to him, and I knew that if anybody was going to, like, bring Richard to Jesus, it would be Jake.
Yeah.
So
like, I was
6 months in, was it? Or a year in?
It would have been about 3 months in, I reckon, since I was there. And then every Sunday, Jake would be like, where's your husband? Where's your husband? Where's your husband? And I was like, oh, and he'd always, like, make up excuses. Richard would make up excuses why he wasn't coming. And so he was like, one day he was like, get him on the phone. I want to call him. I want to talk to him. Let me talk to him. And I was just kind of like, okay. And so I called him. And luckily I didn't, like,
FaceTime?
I didn't FaceTime. But he was like, I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, and then Jake's like, yeah, hey, put him on speaker. Put him on speaker. So I put him on speaker. And he's like, hey, mate, who are you talking? Like, you know, what are you doing? And he said, we all thought up until about a year ago that he said, I'm in the shed doing work. And then so Jake went on a full blokey talk about being in the shed and all that kind of stuff. But it actually was in the toilet. And if you know shush words that are associated with toilets, you'll know what he was doing.
Right, yes.
Yeah, so he like, yeah, so he was like, oh, yeah, I'm in, you know. And so then Jake was like, oh, yeah, come along to church. And Richard was like, oh, yeah. And they managed to, like, level. But at the same time, like, Jake was, and the church was, like, running a coffee van that was, like, yes, it seemed shady. It was fine. I
never thought it seemed shady.
Well, anyway, won't digress.
I thought it was awesome.
It was cool. It was fun.
Just immense respect for everything that they've done. I think it's really cool.
It was caffeinating the high school students of that town. It was great. But yeah, so like Richard went past and like, you know, occasionally would drop in and kind of be like, then would chat to Jake without me, which Richard always says, you always interrupt, which is fine. Like, I do. I'll admit that. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's a problem.
Long story short.
So then, like, so Richard ended up, like, creating some sort of, like, relationship with Jake.
Was he doing Brunanas?
No.
We should tell him about Brunanas.
But he'd just be like, oh, yeah, I just want nice coffee. You know?
Yeah, so he'd go in and get coffee from him. And,
so he'd go and get a nice coffee.
I would love to know the numbers on how many people have met Jesus through Sunday's coffee adventures.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot. There's like
there's a lot because they went from that to a coffee shop.
Yeah.
To we're gonna get Jake on the podcast. I feel like maybe we need to send this to him before it gets released. Just make sure.
Yeah.
I feel like we're only talking nicely about him because I do have utmost respect for him.
But I don't have anything bad to say about him. So
I don't have anything bad to say. But anyway.
So like him and Richard like kind of hit it off, and then Richard started coming to church, and I just remember like in that service, Jake was like did like an altar call, but then didn't exactly like call people up. He just kind of said, stay in your seats, eyes are closed, blah, blah, blah. And I just
love how we're like blah, 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 but it's like literally...
Like it's actually like a life-changing
or death
thing.
situation.
Yes. But like if you've been and you've seen that all your life, it is like blah, blah, blah. But then at the same time, it's like, wow, this is really cool. So Richard and I were sitting at the back, and I just kind of like sat back, just, okay, I'm not like, don't move. Like,
almost don't breathe.
Don't react.
Because again, like 5 years.
Yeah. So I was like, don't react. And he'd, gone
This was not Richard's first opportunity to respond to the gospel.
No.
No.
But I was like, don't react. Like, don't react. And so he like very openly put his hand up, like when it was, if you feel like you have, made some wrong and blah, 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 and you want to, make
amends and give your life
and
to
all that
Jesus.
kind of stuff. Yeah. And he put his hand up and then kind of said, if you're really going to do this, keep your hand up. And, well, if you want to receive prayer, like, we'll get someone to come and, And so he did that. And I was like, just sitting there like, freeze. Don't react, don't react, don't react. And then like afterwards, I got in the car and I was like, good job, buddy. Like,
if you're not watching online, I just rolled my eyes because Richard is a very patient man.
Yes. But so we got.
So it was just beautiful.
Yeah,
like,
but, yeah.
And I feel like we're digressing a bit, but I think it's important to give this context because the reason I wanted the first 2 episodes of the podcast to be this story, I guess, of how we all ended up in Broken Hill is because I just see the Lord all over it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've said a lot of times, we were really doing life together and it was almost like we were too close to Richard for him to hear it from us.
Yeah.
And it almost had become, like, he just heard it from us so many times. He was like, yeah, whatever. And and I think that's a real encouragement. Like sometimes people are like, I just really want to lead my brother or my mum or my dad or my husband or my wife to the Lord. I think so often, rarely is it the people closest to you.
Yeah.
You need that third party to kind of come in and say it. Even as a pastor, I can preach something again and again and again. And then you get a guest speaker in and they say it and everybody's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, seriously, guys? So that happened. Sorry, our sound guy's in distracting us again. So all that happened, Richard comes to the Lord. That's really exciting. And I think it is really important context because I don't think he would have ever heard it from us. And so as much as when we first moved up here, I was like, you guys should follow us. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been the right thing for his faith journey.
Yeah.
As I said before, I feel like God's got a million plan Bs and I'm sure that the Lord would have worked that for good for him as well. But I just felt like it was so beautiful that, Jake was able to lead him to the Lord. And so then a few months later, he made the decision to get baptised.
It's about a year or so later because they had to change venues because they grew out of the PAV. Yeah. And so we had to change venues into a funeral home, which
I just love that Richard got baptised in a funeral home.
Yeah, right.
That's another good tagline for the podcast. My husband got baptised in a funeral home.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But so he got baptised there. And which is crazy because, and then even then, like when he got baptised, he was just kind of still like loosely in it, but not. Like he had a bumper sticker, and I feel like this is actually the Lord's conviction on him too. But he had a giant sticker that he'd made on my cricket machine on the back of his car that just said "F you cancer."
Oh yeah, I know the ones.
And like he was going through, he'd recently lost his mum and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of was on this path of just so much like anger.
Yeah,
because
he was processing a lot.
Yeah, but then he just kind of was like, I just remember one day he'd be like, "Oh, do you know where the glass scraper is?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, because what's the best way to remove these? We remove like vinyl stickers from cars." And I was like, I don't know, like rubbing alcohol or something. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then went off. And then like 45 minutes later, he's like, "Oh, look, my back window's like completely clear of this ginormous sticker." And I was like, yeah, that was like...
Because those stickers are quite eye-catching because it's got like the cancer ribbon. So it looks like the full expletive word. Yeah.
So like, but he just kind of was like, I think that was like a conviction in his heart, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right.
Well, there was also, was the key thing before or after he got baptised? Maybe that was after.
I think it was before.
Yeah. So Richard, and like a lot of these are his story to tell, but you guys were visiting for the weekend and he locked his keys in the car. Now, historically, that would have really annoyed him.
Oh, completely just ripped into shreds.
He would have just been like in a, And so...
he just would have played the blame game and been like...
Yeah, it would have been everybody else's fault, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you guys came up for the weekend and he locked his keys in the car and he took full responsibility and just calmly solved the situation. Yeah. And I still remember we were standing in the kitchen just going, must be Jesus. Yeah. And I think that's what it is. It's like, we should probably get him on for a podcast, but I think he's just such a testimony to seeing the fruits of the Spirit slowly grow in somebody's life.
Yeah.
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 So he then ends up getting baptised. I did the 1,200 kilometre round trip, and jokingly it was like, your favourite pastor's here to watch you get baptised. I think he was a bit overwhelmed. And I thought that was Richard walking in for a sec. And so, yeah, we watched Richard get baptised. So I think in all of that, we're going to kind of probably jump back into the story of us all being in Broken Hill. But I wanted to give that context because I feel like a couple of things. I feel like Richard's faith and his journey with the Lord and him coming to know Jesus was the fruit of that church plant and was the fruit of Jake and Holly's ministry. And I just, thank them tremendously for that. And also, I feel like you guys learn a lot about ministry and kind of being committed. You both ended up on teams there and serving really well. And so you kind of went from this always walking with the Lord. Like, I've known you a long time. You've never not been walking with Jesus.
Yeah.
But to just being really sold out for him and really sold out for his bride in the church.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was the work of Sunday.
Yeah. 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 So, like,
I'm going to make her cry again.
No, I'm not going to cry. I ate my tears. It's fine. We're good. It's been a big 4 years, 5 years.
It really has. I'm just like, what the heck?
It's like,
How are you in our mid-30s?
Don't say that. I'm still 28.
28 forever.
So, like, it's been, like, super, just crazy. Like, just even watching God work through not only, like, my life, but through Richard's life. And I just remember there was a point where I was, like, up the front of church at Sunday, and I was, worshipping, and I had my eyes closed, but then I kind of, like, opened them for a second, and I just saw him at the back with his arms raised, and just kind of, like, I was like, oh, like, like, we're doing it. Like, we're doing it. Like, this is actually, like, a thing. And, like, I've got, like, family that they felt like a massive call from God to move from Canada, back from Canada to back to Australia.
And if you're listening, really, you should be in Broken Hill. Just saying.
We know a chef job going at the moment.
Broken Hill is where it's at.
There's plenty of positions.
Also, just for context, we regularly joke with pretty well everybody that they should move to Broken Hill. We're semi-serious. We'll make space for you. But it's just like an ongoing banter that everyone...
But the thing is like, it's...
I think it's exciting. What God's doing out here is exciting. So fast forward back to where we kind of began this podcast. Yeah. I'm sitting in the church. It's set up for 170 people. I say to my husband, I just feel like we need one other really solid family. So all this has been going on in the background. And as much as I would have loved for you guys to join us in the beginning, I just feel like those 4 years and being a part of everything that happened with Sunday is just like irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And so the next day after I make this, like it wasn't a prayer really, but like, obviously the Lord is always listening. So I'd said this to my husband. The next day you FaceTime me.
Oh, shit.
And so the next day Kirsty FaceTimes me, and you and Richard and Scarlett are all in the frame. Yeah. And so straight away I'm like, what's going on?
Okay, so that Sunday, that's where we left. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is like our dopamine trails.
I feel like it's all good context, and I feel like it's relatively entertaining.
Yeah. But so that's the Sunday prior to having this video call.
I think was the Wednesday or the Thursday.
Yeah. So I was in church one morning, and like that entire weekend, Richard and I had both like gone, maybe a couple of weeks prior as well, really seriously gone, if we were to move to Broken Hill, if we were to move and completely, just partner with Jessie and Josh in the church and do all that kind of stuff without even talking to them about this. Like, if we were to do that, we'd need some sort of clarification and confirmation from God before we did that kind of stuff, before we did anything.
Yeah.
And so, like, I remember being in church and I was like, just felt like, I just remember this Sunday, I was up the front and I was like, singing. I was singing up the front, but I just like, I was worshiping, and multiple other times, all the other times that you know, be up the front and you're worshiping with God, you kind of feel like the connection between, you know, what you're feeling is the church congregation's feeling that same presence and that power and everything like that. So, like, I was up in the church singing, and I like had my eyes closed, and then all of a sudden I had my eyes open, and I was like, I feel like there's a disconnect. Like it was like, you know, it was like, it just wasn't like there wasn't like I like in my heart I felt like there was a disconnect, and I was like, God, what is this feeling? Like it made me feel really like just really agitated in church.
Well, I imagine it would have been quite unusual for you because you are a worshipper in every sense of the word. So that is like your comfort zone. That is the thing, I think, that regardless of whether you're in church or not, you've always listened to worship music. You've always sung. You've always like that's your main connection like with the Lord.
Yeah. So I was like in church and I was like, oh, what is this disconnect?
Yeah.
And then I closed my eyes again, and then I just felt God kind of go, you wouldn't feel like this if you were up here but in Broken Hill. And I was like, what? Like, was that Richard behind me whispering? Like, you know, like I just thought it was super bizarre. But then I like sat there and I just, you know, while everyone else was praying, I was praying within my head. But then I was like, you know, all right, this is like a God nudge. This is a God nudge. Because like leading up to this church service, Richard and I had been like back and forth sending house listings to each other and, you know, and just kind of unspokenly just kind of like just kept like sending out and going, this is what we could be doing. And so then I sat down after being up the front singing, and I sat down at my seat and I grabbed my phone, and Richard was at the back of the production desk, and I just kind of texted him and I was like, so we're moving to Broken Hill.
Just made the call.
Yeah. And he just texted me back, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, whoa, all right. And then so the next day, Tom, who we mentioned before, Tom's mum actually came to pick up one of Tom's nieces from care, because I work in childcare. I came to pick up her, and I just kind of said, want to know something super crazy? I haven't told anyone yet. And she was like, what's that? And I like whispered to her, because I didn't even tell my workplace that yet. I just whispered in her ear, and I was like, we're moving to Broken Hill.
Because she's been here a few times and loves that.
And she just like was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to cry. This is so exciting. I'm so happy for you. And was like really, really excited for us. And I was like, okay, that's like our first response. We've got to tell more people. We've got to actually make this a thing. And then we were going to keep it a secret from you guys.
And just arrive.
Yeah. And just kind of
people want to do that to me.
And just be like, hey, do you mind picking up this thing from Marketplace? I saw it. And then we were just going to be like, open the door and it's us.
Yeah.
Like that was like, you know, this is how your dreams become. Like, anyway, I was like, oh yeah, like just imagine if we just kind of like randomly just rented a house and just kind of settled in there without telling her, and we stayed quiet and then just kind of said, hey, do you mind picking up this really cool thing that I found on Marketplace? Which actually, with context, Marketplace in Broken Hill actually sucks.
It does.
It's like there's nothing good for sale. And actually, I bought a Gumby the other day.
Look, it's just like, because you can't like the brilliance of Marketplace, if you're like, say when we're in Adelaide Hills, is there's just like, within an hour's drive, probably 1 million people.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just a much bigger ratio. Whereas in Broken Hill, it's just the same 17,000 people trying to sell the same junk.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd just be like Kmart furniture, and then they'd just kind of upsell it. So
then you FaceTimed me.
Yeah, so there was like, the Wednesday or the Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think we just got to tell Jessie. We just got to tell her. And then we like called you. And then like all your kids had come home from school. I think maybe at that time or like just after
and I was like,
time.
go away. But I just remember, I just started like crying because I had just been like
actually,
I had said this thing to Josh, you know, that we just needed one family to partner with us, and things had just been a bit, like it had been a real rough few months. And I think the next podcast we might even talk about what life's looked like since you moved here, because it has been incredible, like for the church, but we were not really in a good place. Like, God is always moving, and like I'm at a place in my own walk with the Lord, especially because so much fear has been dealt with in my life. I'm like, if the Lord would like me out here preaching to a dozen people every Sunday for the rest of my life, and that's what he asks of me, I will do it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that's what he is asking of me, and I want to grow this and make it. I believe the church should be reaching people with the gospel. So, like, those two things are in tension. But you rang me, and interestingly, because we've talked so much about Jake, the first thing I said was, does Jake hate me? Because I'm aware that, you know, you guys, you were serving in kids, you were serving in worship, Richard was doing, like, a lot of the production stuff.
Yeah.
So I know what it is to, like, lose good leaders in your church.
Yeah.
But he has been nothing but gracious.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't hate me, I don't think. See what he thinks after this podcast. Nah, he's pretty chill. We have different thoughts, but that, and it was from that point, everything up until recently has just fallen into place for you guys. So you
but even still, I feel like this current situation is
so Kirsty
it's actually
had a job lined up before she even moved to Broken Hill, and was working full time in a preschool here, which then got closed down with 6 hours notice.
Well, it was like, so the Thursday night we'd received emails saying emergency staff meeting at 7:30 a.m. and then on the Friday, and then so like not even 12 hours later we were in this staff meeting, and it just kind of said, oh yeah, so at the end of business today, all your positions are terminated. And
made redundant.
Yeah.
So that happened, but she did have a job lined up.
Yeah, so like it actually felt like super God-led by like...
You've had a real peace about it.
Everything like that when we moved here, everything fell into place. Like,
I love the story of the cardiologist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I see my cardiologist once a year. And so I just kind of... So he's like, oh, yeah. So I saw him in April. And, like, this is well after we'd made the decision. So we'd made the decision, like in February, March?
Yeah, and then you moved up in the July school holidays.
Yeah. So, so we'd made the decision to move up. And I had seen him in April, and I'd said, so... He said, oh, I want to see you in a year's time. Yep. Okay, great. Yep, fantastic. So there's a slight issue with that. And he was like, what's that? And I was like, well, we're moving to Broken Hill. And he was like, yeah, and? And I was like, so what do? I want to keep seeing you. And he was like, oh, well, actually, I'm the visiting cardiologist that goes to Broken Hill, like, numerous times a year.
So you're up there.
So you're fine. And I was like, wait, what? And then I'd called you straight away. And I was like, hey, guess what? How crazy is this? God confirmation number 370, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And then my parents have gone back up to Darwin for a couple of years. So you're like kind of permanently house sitting their house, which has been really good for you guys financially. It's a bit of a tiny house, but it's working.
Slowly.
Yeah.
It's trying to.
So, yeah, I guess that kind of, in a lot of ways, brings us to now. And I think we'll save it for the next episode, everything that's kind of happened in the last few months, which has been really kind of significant. But,
yeah.
Love it.
It's good. Yeah.
See you, love you, bye.
See you, love you, bye.